My name is Jim Roskoph. I'm 74 years old. I served in the U.S. Navy from 1956 to 1978. I was originally born in Cleveland, Ohio. I left home when I was 18 and I never returned, only to visit. My naval experience after training, boot camp. Actually, I went through boot camp 2 times. In 1956, I joined the Naval Reserves in my senior year in high school. And they had a program then in the summer when you got out of school, they would send you to boot camp for 3 months. So I went to boot camp for 3 months. This was after graduation. After I came back, I got a job working in a department store shipping place, and I kind of got the idea that it was a dead-end position. So I decided after seeing Jack Webb in the DI that I was going to go down and join the Marine Corps. So I went down to the Marine recruiting office. I took the test, the Armed Forces entrance test, and I did very well. So I also got a call from a Navy recruiter. So after some soul searching for probably about 10 minutes, because I was a young kid, I went back and talked with the Navy recruiter. And that time they were forming an all-Ohio company to go to boot camp in the Navy. So they wanted me to be in that company, and I told them, well, I had already been to boot camp once. Well, they said it wouldn't hurt you to go through a second time. So actually I went through boot training twice.
Same place?
Same place, Great Lakes, Illinois. Okay. First time I went in the summer, and the second time I went in the winter, and I got to shovel like 2 or 3 foot of snow every week or so, and that's part of my training, I guess. But anyway, after boot camp, I attended Class A engineman school as an engineering rate mechanic. And then I got assigned to the USS Bushnell in Key West, Florida. It's a submarine tender. At that time, there was about 10,000 sailors in Key West. There was 2 submarine squadrons, there was 2 destroyer squadrons, a couple of rescue ships, and aviation rescue boat. I spent approximately 2 years in Key West, and then I went to another submarine tender in Charleston, South Carolina, and I spent about 1.5 years there, and that's where I actually met my wife. We had a little thing that we would go out partying on the weekend, and on Sunday we were usually out of money, and the USO had free dinners, so we would go to the USO at night for dinners, and then they had a little canteen thing afterwards where you dance. So that's where I met my wife, and we got married in 1961.
And she's from North Carolina?
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
Charleston. And she was there with the church group serving the evening meal. And I kind of took a shine to her, so I pursued her heavily. At first she wasn't really that interested, but after a while she found out I was really a nice guy after all, so we got married.
So what kind, and you were on a submarine tender at this point?
Yeah, I was working in the engine room on the ship itself at that time. When I left, that was the USS Gilmore. When I left the Gilmore, I went to a pre-commissioning detail in Pascagoula, Mississippi to put a 3rd submarine tender in commission. I also attended a school in New London for repairs to the auxiliary systems and nuclear systems on the FBM submarines and fast attack submarines. When I reported to the pre-commissioning detail, they put me in the ship's company rather than the repair department, and I was in what they call the auxiliary gang. We took care of all the air conditioning, refrigeration, all the auxiliary equipment on the ship, water coolers, everything, galley equipment, and we also had the operation of the missile crane and maintenance, which was a pretty interesting thing because you could move the crane an inch in any direction, because what they did is the crane came out over the ship, over the submarine, with the missile. You take it down and then they drop it into the tube, close the tube up. These were vertical missiles. After about 1 year in ship's company, they transferred to the repair department, and I worked on nuclear and fast attack submarines for about 1.5 years before I left that command. That was pretty interesting. I've worked inside a missile tube with the missile overhead, and one time we worked 72 hours straight when one of the submarines damaged its navigation periscope, So it was pretty stressful, and we were actually working 12 and 12. We were stationed in Rota, Spain, which was interesting. I lived in town. My wife and my daughter was there.
Young daughter? At that
yeah, she was
time.
a couple years old, and we had a maid for $5 a week. It was a good tour.
Is it on the south of Spain or the
yeah,
north?
it's on the Gulf of Cadiz. It's a Rota Naval Base. It's actually a Spanish naval base. We were tied up there. We did a thing called a med moors, where the ship is moored astern to the pier instead of alongside the pier. That gives the ability of submarines to come along both sides of the ship. I also was involved with the oxygen-nitrogen plant we had on the ship, which produced both liquid and oxygen and nitrogen, and we transferred that to submarines too.
So this is in the late 50s?
This was in the early 60s.
Early 60s?
Yeah.
So we're in the heart of the Cold War.
Yeah, our main mission was to support the submarines. The submarines were involved in the surveillances and all of the things that were going on with the Cold War at that time.
But there's no combat.
No combat at that time. No. When I left Holland, I went to command at Mare Island Naval Shipyard, and I was chief engineer on a yard tug. And our main job there was to assist in they were building submarines in Mare Island at that time, nuclear submarines. And our job was we'd catch them on coming off the ways. We moved a lot of ammunition ships because right about that time, the Vietnam War was starting to escalate a lot, and there was a lot of, most everything going to Vietnam, like weapons and ammunitions and that, was transported by ship. A lot of people don't know that. Also, there was a large dead fleet in Suisun, California. It was right up the Sacramento River from us. And a lot of those old merchant ships were being recommissioned to be able to support the Vietnam effort. So we pulled a lot of those out. It was good duty. It was supposed to be shore duty, but I probably spent just about every day on the water still. And it was good. In one part of that tour, I got to be the cook for the submarine. Our cook got fired, and I got to cook for the guys, which was kind of a new experience for me. And the Navy has, at that time, had standard recipes. And on Tuesday, everybody in the Navy ate the same meals, breakfast, lunch, and supper. Wednesday, same thing. Every day, everything was the same. Once in a while, like on a holiday, you get a special meal. But if you went anywhere in the Navy on a Monday, you get the same meal, any base, any ship, anything, anytime. So it was kind of a new experience. I had a good time on there.